Good morning. My name is Mark Levine, and I'm the Deputy Director of the New York State Association of Counties. It is my pleasure to welcome our NYSAC members and guests that have joined us today for a webinar on outsourcing leave of absence administration proposals or ideas. At this time, before we jump in, I'd like to turn it over to Jeanette Stanziano, who's our Director of Training and Education, for some housekeeping comments.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar today. We just have a couple of points that we want to share with you. This webinar will be recorded and will be posted on the NYSAC website under the Education tab, and then just look for webinars. And you will find, and this will be after, say, 1 o'clock today, there will be a recording, a copy of a PDF of the slide deck, and there will be a handout that will be posted. Unfortunately, will not be posted on the webinar dashboard, but it will be posted on the website under the recording and the PDF of the slides. So please visit our website after 1 o'clock today, and you can access all these materials. During the program, if you have any questions that you would like to submit for our speaker, please look on your dashboard for the Questions tab and type in your questions through that Questions tab, and you can do that at any time during the broadcast. We will get to the questions at the last part of the program today. We will go through all the questions and get live answers from our speaker. So with that, I'm going to turn the program back over to Mark. Mark?
Thank you, Jeanette, and thank you for organizing this webinar this morning. What are we talking about? Managing the many leaves of absences provisions in state and federal statute can be a burden for some personnel departments, and it seems like in New York State in particular, there are more leaves of absence provisions enacted into law every year. That's why some companies have developed solutions designed to help larger employers manage leave programs. We have been working with Absolve and Shep Shepniak, who I will introduce in just a moment, for 2 years now, on trying to develop a solution for counties who might be exploring this outsourcing of their leave of absence administration. As the world of leaves of absence becomes more complex, sometimes it is cost neutral or cost benefit, can benefit the county to have somebody else manage that. So that's what we're talking about today, and I'm pleased that you joined us to explore how this might help your county. It might work, you never know. So again, Absolve is a third-party administrator of employee benefits focused on the first 180 days of employee absence, whether employees' time away from work is protected and or paid, continuous or intermittent for care of self or another. Absolve offers a centralized single source leave of absence outsourcing platform for employers, employees, and their vendors that complies with all federal, state, and local laws in addition to any employer policies. Benefits administered by Absolve include but are not limited to FMLA, short-term disability, paid family leave, paid time off, statutory benefits, voluntary and or employer-sponsored benefits. Our presenter today is a managing partner of Absolve, Shep Shepniak. Shep was born and raised in Mendham, New Jersey. He has been working in employee benefits industry since 1999. After holding various business development roles for national carriers and benefits brokers, Shep founded Absolve in 2010 to better serve the absence management needs of his large, complex clients in the Northeast. Since that time, Shep has increasingly focused on administrative solutions for employee absence, disability, paid family leave, FMLA, statutory equivalents that streamline process, improve the user experience, and reduce costs. He attended the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and lives with his wife and 3 children in Brooklyn, New York. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Shep. Thanks for being with us today, Shep.
Mark, thank you so much. Jeanette and Patrick, thanks to you and all the NISAC staff who helped put this meeting together. To the counties that are attending, thank you for your time and interest. I believe we put together something that is compelling for counties, and we'll move through this agenda in short order, and be sure to answer any questions you have at the end or as a follow-up. But we just made our way through the introduction. We'll look at some leave of absence trends and statistics specific to the public sector. Then we're going to get into the big idea. It won't take us very long. It's a pretty simple approach, and again, I think it's pretty compelling. We'll review some next steps, just in a basic timeline of events from here on out for those counties that are interested, and then we'll move to Q&A to answer any specific questions you have after the presentation. We've already covered this information. There's an opportunity to put a name with a face. This is also repetitive, but I'll just make a mention that we are SOC certified, which means that all of our processes and systems and data integrity, storage, and security have been tested by third parties and approved, and we have a SOC attestation. So you can go to the next 2 slides, to slide 6, Jeanette, if you don't mind. So this is a recent, one of our insurers, sorry, you can go to that slide that you were just on, 6, Jeanette. There we go, or 5. You had it right, I had it wrong. This is a recent study conducted by MetLife, which is one of the insurers. We have many that are supporting this program and this idea. And interestingly enough, their survey determined that 94% of public sector employees said that paid family leave to take care of a family is a must-have or nice-to-have benefit. And so I think it resonates with us as to the importance of this benefit, and it's interesting to get that data from a third party. Next. So what is the challenge here? We're going to run down some quick statistics. This is additional survey information conducted by other folks that are in the industry, and these are the top leave administration challenges as reported by employers. Interpreting the federal and state laws, as Mark mentioned, it's a very dynamic regulatory landscape in New York. Lots of changes, lots of new provisions, temporary executive orders, new benefits, new products, new services that employers are obligated to comply with. Tracking these events, particularly the intermittent aspect, I think is a real bugaboo for most employers, and I think certainly for the public sector. And so the list continues, but I think those are the big ones. Very dynamic regulatory landscape, and tracking is an issue and a challenge for most employers, and it's just not fun. And the reality is, it's not anybody's core competency. This is something that all employers must do, but it's no one's business per se. So we like to believe you can leave this part of your business to us and go about the real business of running your counties and serving your constituents. Next. Some additional statistics on the liability of not complying with these laws. There is an unprecedented amount of FMLA lawsuits. They're up about 26% year over year. The average legal fees to contest these, win, lose, or draw, is $78,000 a case. So there is a significant cost to responding to an employee's claim that they've been treated unfairly during a time of leave. To make matters worse, the Department of Labor is investigating more often. 43% of all investigations are initiated by the Department of Labor. So in addition to giving you the laws to comply with, they're out there actively enforcing them. And the average award per lawsuit is $500,000 a year. So, it's not an insignificant financial number, and there's not an insignificant number of them. 270,000 workers were awarded $240 million in 2014 alone. That's just for back pay. That's not the legal fees. So, again, those are big numbers, and there's a real liability there. And healthcare is similar to counties in terms of its size and complexity and diversity of its workforce. Just another example here of how the laws are interpreted in favor of the employees if it's determined that a leave was handled incorrectly. In this claim, in this particular case, this employee was awarded almost $1 million for failure to a violation of his or her FMLA rights and additional rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So lots of complexity. The volume and the complexity of events lends itself to error and the opportunity to get it wrong, or the opportunity for an employee to feel that you've gotten it wrong. And again, contesting that win, lose, or draw is expensive. Losing those events is even more expensive. So something to be mindful of, I think, as we move forward to the rest of this conversation. Next, please. SHRM, another independent third party. Many of you probably are familiar with this association. They've quantified the cost of unscheduled absence for us, and they peg it at 15.4% of payroll. And if we go to the next slide, Jeanette, we'll put this in the context of payroll. This is a busy slide, and I apologize for that. Lots of information here, but continuing with that 15.4%, healthcare for most folks is 13% of payroll. And I think we all appreciate how much time and attention we pay to healthcare. It's actually a smaller line item than unscheduled absence, believe it or not. It's less costly to our organization than unscheduled absence. And I don't think most folks are in touch with that reality. When we speak about managing absence, it's certainly to help attack this number. It's to try to drive that payroll cost down. You have to, most cases, you have to pay for the folks that are out. They have some type of PTO balance. And in many cases, you have to replace those folks. And that replacement comes in the form of overtime, which we all know is expensive, time and a half, or it comes in the form of a replacement worker that if they're not a permanent worker of yours, they may be charging you or likely charging you a higher hourly rate. And you have to pay that for as long as those folks are out. And so if you're not effectively tracking the leaves, if you're not effectively managing the time that folks are out, if you're not effectively returning people to work, it's very expensive for your organization, and it really hampers your organizational performance. It can kill your culture. And there's a lot of water cooler talk around this type of stuff and how people go out. And so it's just another element of leave to be mindful of. And that is, it's not fun to administer. There's a ton of compliance and liability issues associated with administering leave, and it's expensive. It just flat out is expensive. These are direct hard dollar costs, no soft costs around productivity or training or staffing. This is the people that are out and the people that replace them. So it is expensive. Next slide. So, we feel we've developed a solution here that could be compelling to the counties. Next slide, please, Jeanette. It starts with the paid family leave benefit. And we acknowledge today that the counties as public employers are not obligated to offer this benefit today. Going back to our first slide, it is of interest to 94% of public sector workers. They view it as very valuable. And so one of the nice things about paid family leave from a county's perspective, a budget perspective, is that it's 100% employee paid. And so while counties would have to opt into providing this coverage and offering this coverage, it would not be a cost to the county. The cost would be borne entirely by the employees through a payroll deduction. Further to that, the product that would support this through one of the national carriers, the name brand carriers that we have supporting this program, it's fully insured. The counties take no risk. There's no risk and cost associated with it to offering this benefit. 100% paid by the employee, offered through an A-rated national carrier, fully insured, guaranteed cost contract. So that element of paid family leave, I think, lends itself to viability as far as an offering from a county employer. Next slide. What we'd like to do is take some additional work and liability off the plate of county personnel directors and whoever else they have tasked with administering these leaves. I should mention that in addition to the corporate liability, the employer liability that the counties have for administering leave, those individuals internally, the county employees that are charged with administering the leave, can be held personally liable if they get it wrong. It's crazy to think about, but one employee out on leave, if they determine their leave was not handled appropriately, they can sue the county and they can sue the person at the county who is administering the leave. So it's an additional component of liability. But in addition to the paid family leave, we'd like to take this additional liability of FMLA and the statutory equivalents in any county-specific leaves. Multiple leave policies are okay. Any collectively bargained leaves, any paid time off policies or other income replacement benefits. We'd like to coordinate with your other vendors if we're not administering those benefits. I'm thinking of workers' compensation here. We understand those programs are pretty well baked and probably live elsewhere in risk management. So I think there's a lot of value that can be provided here to the counties by offering paid family leave. And if there's enough uptake, if you will, the counties participate and they roll it out, it would be to all employees. We can get to the collectively bargained folks in just a minute, but it would be to all the employees. And therefore, if we have enough paid family leave benefit out there, then while we're doing that work, it's very simple and efficient for us to do this additional work. In 70 to 80% of the information we would need on an FMLA claim lives inside the paid family leave claim. And so while the employees are paying for this coverage and the insurer is providing that coverage at a guaranteed cost, no risk, no cost to the county, while we're doing that work, we're able to pick up the FMLA work, the statutory equivalents of that FMLA, the additional protected time required by New York state law, and any county-specific leaves or collectively bargained leaves that the counties have. We would incorporate that into one holistic solution. Next slide, please. So what would be the requirements of the counties if they were to go down this path and consider opting into paid family leave? It's pretty simple. Notice to the employees 90 days before the first payroll deduction. And any collectively bargained groups could be admitted thereafter once the plan was established on a rolling basis. And again, it would have to be collectively bargained and agreed to by those unions. I can speak to our experience administering benefits for other large counties in New York, the city of New York specifically, that their union, the admissions of unions on a rolling basis has been very effective and very seamless. And we just added 15,000 employees to our program for the CUNY schools, and so it's not as maybe scary as it might sound to collectively bargain those folks in those units. And we found again a lot of uptake, very positive, very well received, and high levels of appreciation for offering these benefits. We would like an employee eligibility file to be sent on a per paid basis. We have in-house IT resources that can facilitate that. It's not supposed to be a burden on your departments at the county level. So we would look to help get that set up. And once it's in motion, it runs itself. And then the counties would have to facilitate an employee payroll deduction for the PFL coverage. And again, we would help establish that, help you set that up, ensure you have the right rates and the right limits in there to take that deduction correctly. Next slide, please. The only information required to underwrite is a census, and it's pretty basic information on that census. And so the list to get started for the counties is pretty simple. We'd want a listing of all eligible employees. Doesn't have to include their names. A unique identifier would be nice, not their social security number if that doesn't work for folks, employee ID number. But even in the absence of that, date of birth, gender, the home zip code, their annual salary, and their job title is the only information that any insurer would need to underwrite this statutory product, because it is a cookie cutter product. The rules are determined by the state of New York. The rates are determined by the state of New York. The benefits are determined by the state of New York. And so we know what we need to comply with from a product and a pricing standpoint. And the only underwriting that really needs to be done is how big is your group and what's its composition. That's it. Next slide, please. This is kind of a timeline of events from here. If anybody's interested, the time is now. And I know it's a busy time for everybody, and the pandemic has certainly not helped matters. We hope and believe it's subsiding. But if you're interested in pursuing this opportunity or exploring it, we feel 99% certain that anybody who wants to offer this coverage will be able to do so through a national carrier. And again, the rates are established by the state of New York. The benefits are established by the state of New York. The only bells and whistles that would be added to this program are whatever leaves in addition to the PFL the counties would want absolved to administer on their behalf: FMLA, paid time off, collectively bargained leaves, employer policies, etc. So beginning now, we would send out the request for information. Again, it's that simple census data that we looked at on slide 16. Ideally, we'd receive that information in May. Cases would be underwritten, and again, that's how I use that term gently here. Cases would be made underwritten and offered no later than July. The implementation process ideally would take place July, August, September. I understand summertime is a busy time, and we could take that implementation into October if necessary. But that gives us a nice, comfortable timeline to get up and running, get tested, answer any questions, make sure everybody's comfortable with what's going on. As required by law, the notice to employees would go out October 1, and the soonest these benefits could become available would be January 1, 2022. And the reason for that is these are payroll-based benefits, and they run calendar year to calendar year from a state's perspective. And that's really, the insurer aligns with those provisions, and therefore we would just look to 2022 as the date that these benefits and programs would start. And again, I think that gives everybody on this phone call time to contemplate it, time to evaluate it, time to implement it and communicate it, and roll it out for a January 1, 2022 effective date. Next slide, please. So that's it. That's the big idea. That's the pitch. Short, to the point. Any questions that we can answer to help clarify or better qualify the opportunity for the counties, we're happy to answer those. We welcome those questions, and certainly this isn't the only opportunity to ask those questions. We're available for any follow-ups at any time, but we do believe the time is now if somebody's going to act on this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Shep. Appreciate your expertise and your time this morning. I want to remind the county members who are on the webinar that if you have a question, you can submit that question into the question panel of your webinar. Go to webinar dashboard, and I will ask those questions of Shep as they come in. The first question I have here is, so you rolled this out for CUNY just this past year, and that's quite a few employees at 15,000. Are they experiencing cost savings, or what are the benefits that they are experiencing, Shep?
Well, I think one, it's an opportunity for employees in need who have to take care of another person in their family or in their circle. They have that time now, and there's a provision there that allows them to leave work. One, as they're doing that, an organization like ours specifically in this case, understands what's available to them and what they're allowed to take from a time perspective. And so we always put an employer in a position where they could be more generous, but often that comes with a cost. And so the employer has the option as to whether to incur that additional cost and allow an employee to be out longer. But the synthesizing of these benefits, there's between PTO and the FMLA and statutory equivalents and the paid family leave, is really imperative to driving that performance, to ensure that employees get the benefit that they deserve and need at the time of leave, but no more than that. And so the cost savings really becomes in the form of reducing the duration and making sure that employees don't stay out any longer than they absolutely have to.
Okay, great. How about things for leave for vaccines, for getting a vaccine, or leave to go vote, or leave to go to the doctors, or something like that? Is that coordinated with the benefits that you're talking about, FMLA and the other benefits?
Yes, we would wrap all those events, and there's different increments and decrements of times that people get to leave to go do those activities. Sometimes 6-hour, 4-hour increments. Sometimes it's a full day. Depends on how your policies read and where those folks are located. But that would all be part and parcel of this solution and this offer. We would incorporate and capture all those events.
What's the role of the union in this? I know you touched on it a little bit, but for those counties who might be interested in pursuing this further, what should they do in terms of their bargaining units locally?
I think the first, kind of an order of operation, the first thing employers should do is establish a plan, and that plan will be for the benefit of those employees that were not under a collective bargaining agreement. And then they could go and espouse that plan to the unions. And again, we've found that there has been 98% uptake in that plan, in those plans on behalf of the unions. And it's run the gamut from nurses unions to teaching unions to sanitation workers. Everybody seems to present the opportunity and the benefit to their membership and have the membership agree that it's valuable and something they want to offer, understanding that they are bearing the cost of that 100%. And so I think that speaks, it's a testament to the value of the benefit and how employees, regardless of how they're organized or not, value the opportunity for paid family leave benefits. So I would suggest establishing the plan first and then communicating to union leadership that the plan is available and that if their membership chooses, they can enter the plan if it's agreed to. I want to thank everybody for their time this morning. Again, thank you to NISAC, Jeanette, Patrick, Mark for availing your membership to this offer and putting this meeting together. Thank you to all the county personnel directors and the counties that joined. I hope everybody's and their loved ones are safe and well during this time. And if there's any questions that we can answer in the future, please don't hesitate to let us know.
Hey, thanks, Shep. Sorry, I was on mute. I was asking a question, so I appreciate you filling the gap with your closure, and I'm going to keep you on for just a few more minutes here.
Please.
Does every member of a CBU need to opt in, a bargaining unit?
So my understanding is that how those agreements are made, it does seem to be an all or nothing. When we again, our experience with CUNY City of New York is that they entered by collective bargaining unit. And so while employees may work in the same building, they may belong to a different union. And if one union decided to go in, it was all the members of that union that went in. If a union did not, you could be working next to somebody that's under a different agreement and you have the benefit and they do not. Again, we did not see, I can't think of an example when a union was offered this coverage and didn't take it. I don't have that example. Let me correct that. I think that there was a 100-person longshoremen's union that opted out after a year of coverage only because their members had not used it. And again, a very small group relative to the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands that we're covering in New York right now. So that was recent. It only happened after kind of 2+ years of coverage, and literally nobody used the benefit. And so they said, okay, we're going to opt out now. But they initially opted in. And only in those cases, that was the only case that I know of an opt-out. And so my understanding is, I'm not an expert in this area of unions, but my understanding is that the union opts in, it's all of their membership.
How does your solution plug into a personnel office who is already working with a workers' comp carrier, a health insurance carrier, deferred compensation benefit group? How does your solution plug into that mix?
So that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. The short answer is it depends. It depends on, I'll use the level of technological sophistication or automation within those departments, how they're processing payroll. But our goal, regardless of where folks land on that spectrum, is to wrap ourselves around whatever existing programs and solutions they have in place, help the things they have that are working work better. And really facilitate the flow of information amongst all the stakeholders. That could be the personnel directors, it could be the work comp folks, it could be the healthcare folks, it could be payroll, benefits, time and attendance. And so that would be a part of our evaluation process during that June-July period. As we receive information from the counties, we would also do an inventory of their existing programs and systems, and only seek to supplement and support those systems and improve them wherever we possibly could. High levels of coordination and communication would be leading that.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've got about a dozen counties on the phone, from Long Island to Western New York, Allegheny, Cattaraugus County, Niagara, Orleans, Dutchess. So how do you implement your services, and how do you, once you implement them and you're working with a county and their employees, is this an in-person service, or is this all mostly dislocated or on the phone, Zoom, and things like that?
It would depend on the comfort of the county. Certainly, I personally am vaccinated. My team is vaccinated. We wear masks. We want everybody working with to feel comfortable. If that's more comfortable over Zoom, that's fine with us. It's however the counties want to proceed. We can certainly facilitate a lot of information over email. Again, it's a pretty limited list from a data perspective. There's census data. We'd like to see their leave policies. We'd like to understand, again, how they're set up for payroll and the systems that you're using, how we can support those. We have in-house IT resources that can build bridges and conduits to a lot of those systems at no cost to the counties. We will bear that cost on our side. But again, as many in-person communication meetings or implementation meetings as the counties feel comfortable with, we're happy to conduct. We will travel to see them and spend as much time with them as they'd like during the implementation process so they feel comfortable with what's going on. Once the plan is up and running, we have a 100%, well, not 100%, we have a telephonic model. We drive as many people as we can to the phone, and we like people to use their cell phone to call, to file a claim, ask questions, extend their time, tell us they're coming back to work. They can use snail mail, they can use email, they can use the web. It's really whatever folks are comfortable with using at that point. So from a end user experience, the claimant experience, we drive a lot of our traffic to our contact center, and folks use email and fax and sometimes snail mail to supplement that process. Once we have notice of a claim in our environment, we act on it within the same day. So we provide same-day service. We acknowledge your claim. We let you know what information you have provided, what information might be missing. If we can help you get that information, either through the personnel office and or through the payroll feed that I mentioned earlier, a lot of the information is already living in our system. And so when somebody calls in, we confirm the information that we have in their system. We confirm who we're speaking to and that they're eligible for the benefit. We confirm that the county that they work for, and we go get the information on their behalf. That includes doctor's notes to the extent that we can do that and the employee's comfortable with that. That includes employer information to the extent the employer has to provide payroll data and last date work. There's some information we don't want to take from an employee, not that they would give us that information on purpose, but we have to kind of cross our T's and dot our I's. This is a compliance function. And so somebody could say, my last day worked was April 26th and I made $40,000 last year. We're going to verify that information on their behalf. And again, it's a trust but verify type of system. But from an end user perspective, there's not a lot of face-to-face interaction. It's a telephonic model. During implementation, as much face-to-face time as folks are comfortable with.
Well, great, and I thank you, Shep. This is a potential tool, another tool in the county personnel office's toolbox. It may not be for every county, but it may be worth exploring to see how this could benefit your county and the employees that you count on to serve the public in your county on a day-to-day basis. We appreciate you being here on behalf of NISAC. NISAC goes out there in search of programs and services that could help counties with their employees, with their constituents, with their residents, with their nonprofits. So we're continuously doing that for those on the phone or on the webinar who have an idea they'd like us to explore. We're happy to do that. And this is how Shep and Absolve came to us, and we appreciate that very much. I want to thank all of the attendees on today's webinar, and thank Patrick Cummings, who is our liaison to the personnel directors in New York State, county personnel directors. And finally, and Jeanette Stanziano, who's our director of education and training. And Shep, thanks for spending some time with us this morning and offering your services to our counties. I hope everybody has a great day. This will conclude this morning's webinar.